those coveralls that this woman turned in and said that her boyfriend, she suspected, was involved in the Chino murders. When those were turned in, the deputy, his name's Eckley, Deputy Eckley, he told his supervisor and he made a report, and they shared this report with the lead detective, a guy named Sergeant William Arthur, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. So he's very well aware that they now have coveralls with blood on them and horsehair at one of their sheriff's stations. Well, the lead detective never comes to get him. And 4, 5, 6 months later, the day that Kevin Cooper's preliminary hearing begins, the very day, this Deputy Eckley throws the coveralls into the trash, and they're incinerated. So that to me was a major indication of, I mean, now they're destroying evidence. You know, planting evidence is one thing. We talked about the planting of evidence, but this intentionally destroying evidence, not coming to get it. By the way, all the evidence rules are, particularly evidence that has blood on them, they go to the crime lab. There's not hanging around any station out in the boondocks. They go to the crime lab for analysis. I mean, you've got the most horrific crime in California since the Tate murders in 1969. This thing is huge. It's a massacre. The media's all over it. And yet just to sit there and to keep these coveralls. Well, by this time, this Sergeant Arthur, I think, had fixed in on Kevin Cooper as the likely perpetrator, and had built this idea around a lone assailant. So some woman out and 45 miles away saying her boyfriend does it kind of jimmies up his theory. Now you got two people and Cooper doesn't know this guy. What's that mean? So that evidence was destroyed. A woman turned in a blue T-shirt with blood on it, like third day after the murders, to the sheriff. That never entered into the evidence logs. It's noted. I have a copy of them. That blue shirt disappeared. So that type of thing, where you have, you know, information that's very favorable to the defendant, Kevin Cooper, is destroyed. That it would exclude him. In regards to that tan T-shirt, as an example, when they got it in originally, it was blood splattered, found near this bar. They tested it and they said it had one of the victims, the father, it had his blood on it. Makes sense. He gave off a lot of blood. But that's all it was on, one victim's blood. Many years later, like 1999, 2000, they tested again, and now it's got Kevin Cooper's blood on it, as well as Mr. Ryan's blood. So now this really raises the eyebrows of the defense, that this is tampering from that vial I mentioned that has two people's DNA in it, now, to look full. The young girl, 10-year-old Jessica Ryan, she had either a clump or multiple 10, 15 hairs, however you want to describe that, in her hand when she was found, when they came and found her body. Blonde hair or light brown. They're not, you know, one or the other, but they weren't African American hair. And others of the victims had hair in their hands. All of it either blonde or light brown. And there was hair on the bodies of the victims, you know, like on their chest and stuff. That wasn't African. There was no African American hair there. Not one. You know, I mean, you'd think, my God, there's got to be some, if this guy's the murderer. But no African American hair there. Lots of that Caucasian hair, though. So, at the habeas hearing, this Judge Huff, she kind of came around. This is one of the things that the Ninth Circuit ordered them to test. They didn't really test it right. They never tested the hair that had any roots to it. If the hair doesn't have root, you can't do DNA testing on it. So they tested a bunch of hair that see, this stuff's been around so long. They've been in charge and possession of the evidence all these years. So there aren't any roots left. Or at least there weren't roots left on the hair that was available for testing. So that came up inconclusive. It didn't say anything. It didn't reveal anything DNA was. And the other thing they tested was this one drop of blood deal with EDTA testing, and this was very strange. When it came back, they sent it to a state-approved lab. Well, I guess this was the tan T-shirt. They send this tan T-shirt to a state-approved lab that want to do the testing because Kevin Cooper's blood's now on it. And they send a spot. The first indication was from the lab that it was very high in EDTA. It had this preservative in it. Yes, it was Kevin Cooper's blood, but it also had an incredibly high level of EDTA, which would show tampering. So that's submitted to the court by this lab. Then a day or two later, this lab sends a letter to the judge saying, gosh darn it, Judge, my lab was contaminated with EDTA the day I did those tests, and I'm withdrawing those results. And so they say, well, we consumed that test I did that was a lousy test. We consumed more of the deal, more of the blood, so now we're kind of running out of it. That kind of thing. So they have to choose a new spot, and they don't let the defense experts even see the T-shirt. They've never seen this T-shirt at all. And they pick a part of the T-shirt that didn't have, the defense says, didn't have any blood on it. So they ran a test on a shirt. You know, this is a T-shirt. It's not blood, totally covered in blood. They ran a test that the defense says had no blood to begin with. So those are inconclusive. So Huff lets that go. I mean, she really kind of rigs these tests against the defendant. So we never found out if there was. We don't know definitively if there was this tampering that Judge William Fletcher has a mighty strong inkling that there could have been, and it's going to go unknown. I mean, that was Kevin Cooper's lawyer's chances, was right then and there. And how do you get that kind of testing? You know, the Supreme Court would have to come in and say, remand it to the federal court and do it right this time. Do this test right. Answer this petitioner's question. That's the only way it's going to come up now.